And then Taylor Swift says I gonna kill. The thing gonna happen to Taylor Swift is irreversible and she does not know that her life is gonna betray her. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in Nashville when Taylor Swift, donning a casual sweater and jeans, pulled up to the grandiose entrance of the Magnolia Grand Hotel. The Magnolia Grand wasn't just any hotel, it was the epitome of Southern elegance, a place where old-world charm met modern luxury. Known for its sprawling gardens, crystal chandeliers, and impeccable service, it was where celebrities, politicians, and tycoons often sought refuge. Taylor, fresh off a grueling tour schedule, was looking forward to a quiet weekend away from the limelight. She had heard glowing reviews of the Magnolia Grand and had set her heart on experiencing its renowned hospitality. She had even made sure to call ahead, booking a suite and making arrangements for her team to stay nearby. As she stepped out of her sleek black SUV, the doorman's eyes widened momentarily in recognition before he quickly masked his surprise. "Miss Swift, welcome to the Magnolia Grand," he said with a respectful nod. She smiled warmly, brushing a stray strand of blonde hair from her face. But as she made her way to the front desk, the atmosphere shifted. Behind the polished mahogany counter stood Mr. Gerald Montgomery, the hotel's manager, a man whose reputation for perfection was matched only by his icy demeanor. Tall and sharply dressed, with salt and pepper hair slicked back meticulously, he was a figure who commanded attention and fear from his staff. "Good afternoon," Taylor began, her tone polite and upbeat. "I have a reservation under Swift." Mr. Montgomery glanced up, his piercing gray eyes narrowing slightly. He hesitated for a fraction of a second before responding, "I'm sorry, Miss Swift, but it appears there's been a mix-up. We have no record of your reservation." Taylor's brows knitted together. "That's strange. I booked weeks ago. Is there any chance you could check again?" He pursed his lips, tapping on the keyboard with exaggerated precision. "Nope. Nothing here." His voice was clipped, almost dismissive. By now, a small crowd of curious onlookers had gathered at a discreet distance. Whispers began to ripple through the lobby as people recognized the pop icon. "Isn't that Taylor Swift? Why is the manager being so cold to her?" Taylor, ever gracious, maintained her composure. "I completely understand if there's been a mistake. Do you have any other rooms available? I'd be happy to adjust my plans." Mr. Montgomery straightened, his expression unyielding. "Unfortunately, we're fully booked for the weekend. Perhaps you could try another establishment in town." It wasn't just his words, it was the tone. Condescending. Aloof. Deliberate. Taylor's face betrayed a flicker of hurt, but she quickly masked it with a soft smile. "All right," she said, her voice steady. "Thank you for your time." As she turned to leave, whispers turned into murmurs of disapproval. The staff exchanged uneasy glances, but none dared to intervene. Mr. Montgomery, however, stood firm, his lips curling into a subtle smirk as he watched her exit. What he didn't realize was that this seemingly small act of rejection would set off a chain of events that would not only put the Magnolia Grand Hotel on the map but also redefine the meaning of karma. The air outside the Magnolia Grand Hotel was crisp as Taylor Swift stepped back into her sleek black SUV. Her driver, Mark, looked at her through the rearview mirror, concern etched across his face. "Everything all right, Miss Swift?" Taylor hesitated for a moment, her eyes lingering on the grand facade of the hotel. The golden glow of the chandeliers inside the lobby cast long reflections on the polished marble floors. And behind those towering glass doors stood him, Gerald Montgomery, smirking like he had just won some invisible battle. She let out a soft chuckle, her signature red lips curling into a sly smile. "Oh, everything's just fine, Mark. Take me home. We have some work to do." That evening, Taylor sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse apartment overlooking downtown Nashville. In front of her, a steaming cup of tea sat untouched. Instead, she was lost in thought, scribbling furiously in her leather-bound notebook. For most people, being turned away at a hotel might have been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. But Taylor Swift wasn't most people. She had spent years pouring her heart into her music, connecting with fans who felt every lyric as if it was written specifically for them. She wasn't about to let a man in a press suit with an inflated ego make her feel less than. Her phone buzzed. It was her assistant, Laura. "Taylor, you'll love this. Gerald Montgomery has a reputation for being particular. He's known for turning away celebrities he doesn't deem appropriate for his establishment. Last year, he denied service to a Grammy-winning blues artist because, get this, he didn't fit the aesthetic." Taylor raised an eyebrow. "Aesthetic, huh? Sounds like someone's hiding their insecurity behind marble countertops and overpriced champagne." Laura laughed on the other end. "Exactly. Oh, and one more thing, the Magnolia Grand's big annual Golden Magnolia Gala is next Saturday. It's their most prestigious event of the year. Montgomery invites Nashville's elite politicians, CEOs, country music legends, you name it. If you're not on that guest list, you don't matter in his world." Taylor's blue eyes sparkled with mischief. "Laura, I want you to get me every detail about that gala. Who's attending, who's performing, even the color of the napkins. I want everything." The days leading up to the Golden Magnolia Gala were a flurry of activity. Taylor worked quietly behind the scenes, calling in favors from friends, connecting with event planners, and even reaching out to a few influential Swifties who just so happened to sit on charity boards and entertainment committees. Meanwhile, Gerald Montgomery was busy basking in the anticipation of his event. The lobby of the Magnolia Grand buzzed with activity as florists, decorators, and event staff scrambled to make sure every detail was flawless. Montgomery walked among them with the precision of a general inspecting his troops, barking orders and adjusting flower arrangements with an air of practiced authority. "Mr. Montgomery," a young concierge approached timidly. "There's a lot of chatter online about..." "Well, about Taylor Swift." Montgomery smirked. "Oh, let the internet chatter. Miss Swift is probably writing a sad little song about me on her guitar right now. She'll move on." But Montgomery couldn't have been more wrong. On the night of the Golden Magnolia Gala, the Magnolia Grand was draped in opulence. Golden fairy lights twinkled across the manicured gardens, champagne flowed like water, and the soft hum of violins filled the air. Nashville's elite arrived in droves, stepping out of luxury cars, their glittering gowns trailing behind them as they ascended the marble staircase. Gerald Montgomery stood at the entrance, shaking hands, flashing his polished smile, and soaking in the prestige he believed he had earned. And then, just as the clock struck 8, something shifted. From down the cobblestone driveway came a line of black SUVs, each one identical, each one gleaming under the glow of the golden lights. One by one, they pulled up to the entrance. The first SUV door opened, and out stepped a Grammy-winning blues artist, the same one Montgomery had rejected last year. Behind him came an A-list Hollywood actress. Then a famous country singer. Then another celebrity. And another. Gerald's smile faltered. His carefully constructed facade began to crack as he realized these were not the expected guests. These were people he had dismissed, rejected, or overlooked over the years. And finally, out of the last SUV stepped her. Taylor Swift, wearing a breathtaking emerald gown that shimmered under the lights, her signature red lipstick perfectly in place, and her head held high. She looked like royalty as she walked up the steps, each movement exuding confidence and grace. The crowd gasped. Phones flashed. People whispered. Taylor approached Gerald with a dazzling smile. "Mr. Montgomery," she said sweetly. "It seems your guest list has a few surprises tonight." Before he could stammer out a response, Taylor turned on her heel and walked past him, into the grand ballroom, her entourage trailing behind her. Inside, guests erupted into applause. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as Taylor greeted old friends, posed for photos, and effortlessly commanded the room. But the real shock was yet to come. Because Taylor Swift wasn't just attending the Golden Magnolia Gala. No, she was about to own it. The grand ballroom of the Magnolia Grand Hotel was a scene straight out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the towering ceilings, casting a golden glow over Nashville's elite. The soft hum of string instruments provided an air of sophistication, and champagne flutes clinked like delicate bells in the hands of glittering guests. But tonight, there was an undeniable shift in the air, an energy, a spark, a presence that no one could ignore. And at the center of it all stood Taylor Swift. In her emerald green gown, she moved through the room like a queen surveying her kingdom. Guests swarmed around her, not in the usual starstruck frenzy, but with genuine warmth and admiration. After all, this wasn't just Taylor Swift the celebrity, this was Taylor Swift, the mastermind. From a distance, Gerald Montgomery watched the scene unfold, his polished exterior beginning to crack. His jaw was tight, his fists clenched behind his back, and his usually sharp gray eyes darted nervously across the room. This was his event. His ballroom. His gala. But somehow, it felt like he was merely a guest at Taylor Swift's party. As the evening progressed, the ballroom came alive with laughter, stories, and electric energy. At one point, Taylor was seen chatting with the same Grammy-winning blues artist Gerald had once turned away. Another moment, she was sharing a heartfelt conversation with an influential country singer who'd been subtly blacklisted from the hotel years ago. The carefully curated guest list Gerald had so meticulously controlled was now overshadowed by Taylor's hand-picked entourage, each person a powerful symbol of resilience, inclusion, and authenticity. At precisely 9 p.m., the stage lights dimmed, and the sound of a grand piano filled the air. Guests turned toward the stage, and there, seated behind the piano, was none other than Taylor Swift herself. The crowd erupted in applause as she adjusted the microphone and began to speak. "Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful time tonight," she said with her trademark warmth. "This place is stunning, isn't it? The Magnolia Grand, so much history, so much charm." From the side of the room, Gerald froze. He could feel every pair of eyes in the ballroom flickering between him and Taylor. But you know what I've realized over the years. Taylor continued. It's not the chandeliers or the velvet curtains or the marble floors that make a place grand. It's the people. It's the warmth. It's the way you're made to feel when you walk through the doors. A murmur rippled through the crowd as Taylor's words hung in the air like a perfectly struck chord. Sometimes, people in power forget that. They forget that their actions, their decisions no matter how small have consequences. And sometimes, those consequences come back around in the most unexpected ways. There was a pause, a sharp, deliberate silence as Taylor let her words sink in. Then she smiled, leaned into the microphone, and said, "This one's for anyone who's ever been made to feel like they didn't belong." And with that, she began to play. The first notes of All Too Well floated into the air, followed by Taylor's hauntingly beautiful voice. The room was utterly silent, every guest captivated by the raw emotion pouring from her performance. Even the servers, frozen in place with trays of champagne, stood still to listen. But the most important reaction was Gerald's. He stood near the back of the ballroom, his face pale, his confidence shattered. This was his event, yet he had been reduced to an insignificant bystander in a story he no longer controlled. As the final notes of the song echoed through the ballroom, the crowd erupted into a thunderous standing ovation. Taylor rose from the piano bench, her smile soft but triumphant, and she gave a gracious bow. As the gala continued, it became increasingly clear who the true star of the evening was. Taylor wasn't just a guest, she was the heartbeat of the event. But Taylor wasn't done yet. Near midnight, just as the last of the speeches wrapped up and the ballroom began to wind down, a spotlight suddenly illuminated the grand entrance. The doors swung open, and in walked a team of hotel inspectors, along with representatives from the Hotel Owners Association of Tennessee. Gasps filled the room as Gerald Montgomery's face turned an alarming shade of red. "Mr. Montgomery," one of the inspectors said calmly as they approached him, holding a thick folder of documents. "We've been receiving complaints about discriminatory practices at this establishment, and tonight's events have drawn significant attention. We're here to conduct an immediate review." Gerald stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. But this is my hotel. You can't just." "We can, Mr. Montgomery," the inspector interrupted. "And we will. Effective immediately, your managerial duties are suspended pending a full investigation." The ballroom went dead silent. Guests exchanged wide-eyed glances, some covering their mouths in shock. From across the room, Taylor caught Gerald's eye. She didn't smirk, she didn't gloat, she simply gave him a polite nod, a silent acknowledgement that actions have consequences. As Gerald was escorted out of the ballroom, Taylor turned back to the crowd, her voice soft but steady. "Well, I guess that's our cue to wrap up the night. But let's remember, kindness is a choice. Every single day. Let's choose it." The crowd erupted once more in applause, but this time, it felt different. It felt earned. Outside the Magnolia Grand, the golden lights twinkled softly in the cool night air. Taylor walked down the marble steps, her emerald gown trailing behind her like liquid silk. "Mark," she said to her driver as she climbed into the SUV. "Take me home." As the car pulled away, Taylor leaned back against the leather seat and let out a soft sigh. Justice, after all, had been served. The news of the Magnolia Grand Gala incident spread like wildfire. Headlines splashed across every major outlet. Taylor Swift turns gala night into a masterclass on grace and justice. Hotel manager suspended after discriminating against Taylor Swift. The Queen of Pop outsmarts a gatekeeper in the grandest way possible. Social media exploded with clips of Taylor's speech, her haunting piano performance, and, of course, the moment Gerald Montgomery was escorted out of his own event. Fans celebrated not just Taylor's musical genius, but her quiet strength and strategic brilliance. But behind the viral headlines and trending hashtags, something deeper had happened. Taylor hadn't just exposed a petty man's arrogance, she had reminded the world of a simple truth: kindness, respect, and integrity always win in the end. A week later, Taylor returned to the Magnolia Grand Hotel, but this time, under very different circumstances. The entrance was decorated with flowers and soft string lights. Staff members, some of whom had witnessed the events of the gala, gathered nervously as Taylor stepped out of her SUV. But instead of walking in with her usual entourage, she carried a small leather-bound notebook and wore a simple cream dress. A woman approached her, a petite figure with kind eyes and a name tag that read Marianne, interim manager. "Miss Swift," Marianne said, her voice trembling slightly. "On behalf of the Magnolia Grand staff, I'd like to personally apologize for what happened last week. Gerald's actions were not a reflection of who we are." Taylor smiled warmly and took Marianne's hands in hers. "I believe you. And that's why I'm here today." She handed Marianne the leather notebook. "These are some notes I wrote down after my visit last week," Taylor explained softly. "Ideas for how the Magnolia Grand could become more inclusive, more welcoming, more real. You've built something beautiful here, and I'd love to see it thrive." Marianne opened the notebook. Inside were handwritten suggestions: more training for staff on hospitality ethics, partnerships with local charities, a commitment to supporting artists from all walks of life. The staff members around them started clapping softly, a few even wiping away tears. Marianne nodded, her voice breaking. "Thank you, Miss Swift. Truly." Before leaving, Taylor turned back to the staff and said, "Every person who walks through those doors deserves to feel welcome, seen, and valued. You have the power to make that happen every single day." And with that, she walked back to her SUV, leaving behind not just her suggestions, but a ripple effect of change. That evening, Taylor shared a post on her social media. "Sometimes, life gives you an unexpected stage. And when it does, you have to decide what kind of story you want to tell on it. Kindness, courage, integrity. That's the story I hope we all tell, every single day." The post ended with a simple note. "P.S. The Magnolia Grand is under new management. Might want to stop by sometime." The comments section flooded with love. Taylor Swift, showing us once again how to rise above. This is why she's not just a singer, she's a role model. Petty gatekeepers beware. Taylor Swift will outsmart you every time. A month later, under Marianne's leadership, the Magnolia Grand Hotel was thriving. The staff had undergone training, the guest list was more diverse than ever, and the hotel became known as a place where everyone felt welcome. And tucked away in the corner of the grand lobby was a framed photograph: Taylor Swift at the Golden Magnolia Gala, seated at the grand piano, pouring her heart into every note. Beneath the photo was a small plaque that read, a reminder that true greatness isn't measured by status or power, but by the way we treat others. As Taylor Swift boarded her private jet for her next tour stop, her team buzzed around her, discussing schedules and rehearsals. But Taylor sat quietly by the window, looking out at the setting sun with a satisfied smile. Sometimes, revenge doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes, the sweetest victory comes not from destroying someone else but from building something better. And Taylor Swift had done just that. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of wit, heart, and unforgettable moments. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And remember, kindness always wins. Always. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.